My White's first love pushed me off a cliff and caused my death. But he lied and said that as a rescue team member, I didn't save him when he was in danger. My wife was so ashamed and angry that she exposed my crimes online. However, netizens pointed out loopholes and said that I might be the victim. She didn't believe and instead thought that the netizens were all trolls I bought. She furiously insulted me online. It wasn't until she was notified to claim my body that she finally panicked. One after being pushed off the cliff, accompanied by a strong sense of weightlessness, I slammed hard onto the ground, feeling intense pain all over my body. The last image on my retina was Sean's mean expression. Martin, don't blame me. I just love her too much. Without you, Ruby and I can be together. The feeling of approaching death suffocated me, and my body seemed to fall apart. I used my last bit of strength, tapped the screen of the phone that had fallen beside me, and pressed the call button to Ruby with my trembling hand. It rang twice and was hung up by her. I took a breath and called again. She still didn't answer. A message popped up on the screen. Martin, die outside and never come home again. Her words cut my face like a knife. The heavy rain pattered on me, taking away my last body temperature. In the next second, my vision fell into darkness, and all my senses disappeared. Even the pain on my body disappeared completely. When I opened my eyes, I saw Sean standing by the cliff again. He patted the dirt on his hands, picked up a stone, and with a hard heart, he made several shallow blood marks on his body. Then he braved the heavy rain and walked down the mountain. At this time, I realized that my body was lying under the cliff, but my soul was following Sean. Am I dead? Pushed off the cliff by Sean and fell to my death? The moment I realized this fact, a sour feeling seized my chest. How ridiculous. I went out and climbed the mountain on a rainy night, just to help my wife Ruby rescue her first love. And her first love, Sean, just killed me with his own hands. As she said, I really died outside. She must be satisfied. 2 Master. Go to Shinshui Huayuan. Sean sat in the taxi wet all over, looking listless. Shanshui Huayuan is the home where Ruby and I live together. Why would he go there? As a ghost. I was shocked, reminded by memories. The scene of Ruby forcing me to go out just now appeared in front of my eyes again. She grabbed the corner of my clothes. Martin, today you must go and save Sean for me. He is your best brother and also my benefactor. You are a rescue team member. How can you see death and not save? I opened my mouth, but my throat seemed to be rusted. Ruby. Reasonable. Okay? Today there is a heavy rain. It's impossible to go up the mountain at all. How could Sean suddenly go up the mountain? Moreover, if he can contact you, he can call the police and ask for help by himself. A slap landed on my face with a crisp sound. I was stunned. How can you speculate about him like this? How could he deceive us? Ruby's voice trembled. In such a heavy rain. If he calls the police for help, he will definitely be questioned for occupying public resources. Maybe he will be posted online and cyberbullying. But when he said he went up the mountain, it wasn't raining yet. His hand is injured and he can't save himself anymore. This is all left from when he risked his life to save me. As she said, her eyes reddened. Martin, go and save him. Okay? In such heavy rain. He will really die. Looking at her reddened eyes, my heart was filled with dull pain. My wife begged me with such a low profile. But it was for someone else. Such heavy rain is very dangerous for Sean. But isn't it dangerous for me too? Moreover, in the past, I was injured in order to save Ruby, and I can no longer perform tasks. But as soon as I mention that accident, she will have a mental breakdown. So I keep silent. But she mistakenly thinks that Sean is her savior. From then on, she threatens me everywhere for his sake. I can't save people anymore. If it were in the past, I might really die. But I still opened my mouth. Seeing that I didn't agree, Her expression suddenly became hideous and she said fiercely, "Martin, I tell you, if he has an accident because of this today, then he is killed by you. If he dies, I won't live either. As a rescue team member, you actually see death and not save. I will post you online and expose you. Let everyone see what kind of hero you are." 3. When Sean knocked on my door, I was floating beside him thinking wildly. When Ruby sees him, will she realize that I am gone? Will she come looking for me? Moreover, I didn't come back. But Sean, who was waiting to be rescued, came back. She will definitely find something wrong. I couldn't help but get excited and look forward to Ruby discovering my disappearance. But the next scene in front of me was like pouring a basin of cold water on me. Ruby opened the door and threw herself into Sean's arms. "Sean, fortunately you came back safely. I was so worried about you." Sean also hugged her back and said a grieved lie. "Ruby, I almost thought I would never see you again. Martin clearly came but didn't save me. He even deliberately threw stones at me and almost made me fall off the cliff. He showed Ruby the wounds on his body and sobbed pitifully. I begged him to save me, but he called me a mistress and said that I should fall and die." I felt a chill all over. Sean has always said that he and I are good brothers. I didn't expect that he had long wanted to hook up with Ruby. At the beginning, when Ruby mistook him for her benefactor, he specially promised me I meet her only to treat her illness. Don't worry, a brother can't deceive his brother's wife. As a result, everything had already sown the seeds of disaster. I didn't even know that the relationship between them was already so close. I thought that Ruby's concern for him was just concern for her benefactor. Now it seems that he is more than just a benefactor to her. Damn Martin. Why doesn't he die? He is a rescue team member. How could he do such a thing? Where is he now? I want to divorce him. Ruby was extremely distressed and touched the wounds on Sean that were about to heal. Then she turned around and began to curse me. I smiled wryly. I'm already dead. She must be satisfied. Sean hugged her but curled his mouth where she couldn't see. At that time, he wanted to kill me, so I pretended to be unconscious. He might have thought I was dead and left. Perhaps. He also thinks that he has killed someone and can't come back. So he hid. Ruby has a hot temper and stood up abruptly. He really dares to do such a murderous thing. Let's go to the police with you. Anyway, we have to catch him. Sean's expression changed, and he found an excuse. He didn't really kill me. Even if we catch him, there's nothing we can do. Instead, he will take revenge on me. Ruby began to feel sorry for his sensible. Even so, I want him to give you an explanation. We can't just let it go. She picked up her phone and called me. As expected, it didn't get through. Because my phone, together with my body, is forever lying in a muddy place at the foot of the mountain. This made her even more convinced that I had absconded. After hanging up the unanswered call, her eyes were so gloomy that it seemed water could drip. She sent voice messages to my social account with a gray avatar. Very good. Martin, you have betrayed your identity, and also betrayed me. The thing I regret most in my life is marrying you. This coward and villain. As soon as the words fell, it seemed as if she suddenly turned on the switch of her anger. She posted on the internet and exposed me. For a rescue team member attempted murder. Behind the glorious hero is actually a demon. Due to my special identity, I have heat and traffic. Moreover, I have accidentally been on the news many times because of saving people before and even have a bit of the attribute of an internet celebrity. Although I wasn't named, this post quickly became popular. Oh my god. Is there such a thing? Looking at the IPN description, it seems to be that person who was quite popular on the internet before and was on the hot search several times. Didn't many people say that he was handsome and became his face fan? Lol. Come out and see. The brother you like is this kind of person. Wait. The content of your post is to fake. Why doesn't someone call the police when they are in danger but instead ask a rescue team member to go and rescue privately? This is not in line with the regulations. Don't comment on other people's heroes casually. There should be a limit to creating rumors and ride on someone else's popularity. Reported. Thanks. Ruby was so angry that her teeth itched. She immediately replied, "Who is creating rumors? I guarantee that everything I post is true." But things soon got out of control. The photos on her homepage that were deleted cleanly were dug up. Someone was surprised and said, "Isn't she Martin's wife? Why post such things? Who knows what she wants to do?" Martin, brother, control your wife. Is it a hacked account or a hero's family won't post such things? As a result, netizens couldn't call me out no matter what. Even a friend of mine called Ruby sister-in-law. Did you two quarrel? Martin is not such a person. Are you mistaken or was your account hacked? Even if what the post says is true, Martin can't do such a thing. Sister-in-law. Be careful. Maybe that person is deceiving you. Maybe Martin had an accident and didn't come back. Ruby couldn't argue with them. She was so angry that her eyes were bloodshot and she shouted, "How could that bitch Martin have an accident? He is pretending. He is a rescue team member. What could happen to him?" Immediately after, Ruby received a call from the police. They told her that it was reported by netizens. At present, they also couldn't contact Martin. They also asked her to be cautious online and not post rumors. Impossible. Impossible. Is it not being able to contact him ironclad evidence? Of course it's because he really committed a crime and absconded. Why don't you all believe me? Ruby. Please calm down. But Ruby couldn't calm down. She hung up the phone abruptly, rushed into the room, picked up our wedding photo placed by the bedside, and smashed it to pieces. I cried out, "Don't," but Ruby couldn't hear me at all. She picked up our marriage certificate and tore it to pieces. Pieces of paper like snowflakes fell from her fingers. As if it wasn't enough, she pulled down all my certificates and pennants hanging at home and tore and smashed them. Martin, what kind of hero are you? What kind of ecstasy did you give them? Why is everyone helping you speak? These are all rewards I got in exchange for risking my life to rescue. They are the rewards given to me by countless people I saved. This makes me feel that every scar on my body is worth it. Because I have saved other people's lives. But their warm smiles and sincere thanks all turned into a pile of waste paper and rags in her hands. I rushed to grab them. But my fingers passed through her body. In vain. Strange. Obviously ghosts can't shed tears anymore. Why do I feel warm tears flowing down my face? Martin. I really regret choosing you. Ruby's voice trembled a little. She knelt on the ground and murmured to herself, "You said you would be loyal to me. But why did you still leave me and go?" 5. Ruby has always lacked a sense of security. She once encountered an accident. Her parents died to protect her. Little Ruby grew up alone, guarding the family inheritance. Not only were her relatives selling her family property, but everyone around her came for money. She had been deceived too many times and no longer trusted true feelings. When I was with her at the beginning, she was often very capricious, and asked me countless times if I would betray her or leave with others. But I know that she was asking me for a sense of security. Because I have seen her wake up in the middle of the night crying for mom and dad, trembling all over. So I hugged her countless times and told her that I wouldn't leave. I would always be with her. But not this time. Ruby suddenly burst into hysterical crying. No one will always be by my side. No one will firmly choose me. Not even you. You liar. Didn't you say that you would be a hero and always protect me? Where did you go? Martin, come out. Do you really want a divorce? Her cries echoed at home. But no one answered her. She could only watch helplessly as Sean rushed in the next moment and hugged her tightly, letting her cry unrestrained lie in his arms. Ruby. I will love you. It doesn't matter if Martin doesn't love you. I will always love you. I won't leave you. Even if I die. What he said was so similar to what I repeated by her ear countless times back then. I couldn't wait to tell Ruby that everything he said was false. He killed me. I didn't betray you. But I can do nothing now. I'm dead. Yet my closest person, my wife, doesn't care about me at all. On the contrary, those strangers are extremely persistent about my life and death. How can it not make me feel ironic? Ruby finally calmed down and hugged Sean, sobbing and saying, "Sean, you are so kind. He treated you like that. And I am his wife. You actually don't hold a grudge." Her words were interrupted by Sean. He wiped away her tears and said seriously, "No. He doesn't deserve to be your husband. From now on, let me love you instead." Ruby looked at him longingly and finally uttered a soft, and buried her face in Sean's chest. "Sean, you are my hero. Everyone doesn't believe me. Only you are by my side." But where she couldn't see, I saw Sean's cold smile. He said something in a whisper. And I saw his lip movements. "Martin, what's the use of you doing so much? What should be mine will eventually be mine." My soul seemed to be trapped beside them. I could only watch helplessly as Sean moved into the wedding room that belonged to Ruby and me. Ruby's phone was still being bombarded with various messages. Under Sean's instigation, she turned off her phone and refused to receive any messages. When the morning news was broadcasting, they were having breakfast together. An accident occurred in Chience's Han Scenic area. Last night, a tourist slipped and fell off a cliff and has no vital signs. Ruby suddenly raised her head and looked at the TV. The fork in her hand fell to the ground. Sean's face turned pale. Suddenly, a wave of pleasure welled up in my heart. Did he think that no one would know if he pushed me down the valley? Unexpectedly. No matter how much he lies, there is no wall that doesn't let the wind through. Ruby slowly turned her head and looked at Sean with a scrutinizing gaze. Sean's hand hidden under the table anxiously picked at the corner of his clothes. And I beside him became excited. "Ruby, you see it, right? I was wronged. Quickly see his true face and avenge me." But what I didn't expect was that Ruby suddenly let out a long breath. "Sean, fortunately you were blessed with great fortune. Otherwise, it might be you on TV today." Sean's tense body also relaxed instantly. He smiled and said, "Yes. I kept thinking about coming back to see Ruby and that's how I held on. Speaking of which, you are my lucky star." He forked a pastry from the plate and was about to feed it to Ruby. But Ruby pressed his hand. "Sean, your right hand was injured. I'll do it myself." Sean showed a touched expression. "Ruby." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly knelt on one knee and took out a ring. Ruby exclaimed. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Ruby, I know you have always wanted a formal proposal. What Martin couldn't give you, I will give you. Ruby, will you be with me?" Sean looked at her with a smile and slowly put the ring on her ring finger. "But that ring clearly was bought by me." Before, Ruby fell into a dilemma of a business marriage. In desperation, she pulled me to get a marriage certificate. But the time was too tight. We didn't have a wedding. We only took a set of wedding photos. I knew how important a proposal was to a woman. I had been secretly preparing a proposal and a grand wedding, just waiting to surprise her, afraid that she would find out. This ring had always been with Sean. He directly guaranteed, "Don't worry. Brother will definitely keep it for you. When there is wedding wine to drink, please invite me to be the best man." Unexpectedly, he had been coveting Ruby since then. Presumably because Ruby's family is rich and he wants to chase her and reach the peak of life from then on. Unfortunately, I'm dead. Everything has become his possession. Whether it's the ring or Ruby. Ruby looked at the beautiful dine and ring on her hand and shed tears. This time it was touched. "Sean, you really know what I want." She seemed to finally make up her mind and looked at him firmly. "I promise you, when Martin comes back, I will divorce him and marry you." At this moment, there was a ding-dong. The doorbell rang. "Hello. We are the team from Shenyuan Wedding Company. We are here to discuss the wedding matters. Is anyone home?" Ruby was even more surprised. She grabbed Sean's sleeve. You actually prepared this. Sean was a bit hesitant. Perhaps she was too excited. She couldn't help but jump up and kiss Sean's cheek. You are quite romantic. Watching Ruby run towards the door, Sean suddenly turned pale. He subconsciously said, "Wait. Ruby. Don't," but she had already opened the door. "Excuse me. Are you Miss Ruby?" The person outside the door called out her name. "Yes. It's me." Ruby smiled sweetly. "Then let's check the order." The person who ordered the wedding service as she interrupted their words. "Mr. Sean. Right?" "No." The person in charge of the wedding team frowned. "Please allow me to confirm again. Is it 307? Right?" Ruby was stunned for a moment. "Yes. 307 is my home." She seemed to realize something. She quietly listened to the next sentence spoken by the person in charge. "However, the purchaser of the wedding service shown on our order is Mr. Martin 7, as if she finally realized the existence of me, the legitimate husband. Regardless of Sean's various explanations, Ruby sent him out of the house. "Sean. I'm tired. Let's meet again later." She closed the door and sat on the sofa. After a long time, she said slowly, "Martin. Why on earth? Why do you give me hope at this time? You might as well just leave and cut it clean. I'll just consider my true feelings over the years as fed to the dogs. But where did you hide? Why on earth are you not even willing to come out and see me?" She murmured to herself. She turned on her phone but saw overwhelming news. The victim in the scenic area is suspected to be Martin, who was exposed online last night. The mystery of Martin's death. Murder or accident? The covered truth. The lies of his wife. His death knell. Ruby had already softened her attitude and wanted to give in to me and make up. But she was enraged again by these news. "Good for you, Martin. You actually bought fake hot searches and fake news. Is this your revenge on me?" She picked up her phone and typed quickly. "He is not dead at all. He must be hiding in some corner and manipulating public opinion. Don't be deceived by him. He is a bitch and a coward. He doesn't deserve your trust and liking." Unexpectedly, she typed a lot of words but couldn't send them out. Her account was banned due to rumor mongering and marketing. I actually found it a bit funny. Even so, she still doesn't believe me? Ruby gasped for breath and smashed her phone hard on the ground. "Martin, you better be really dead. Never come back. Just die outside." After a while, she picked up her phone again and called me. "I don't believe it." Answer the phone quickly. But no matter how many times she called, she could only hear one voice. "The number you dialed is powered off." Looking at the 2 missed call records at the bottom of her screen, I sighed gently. The 2 calls I made to her at the end. She didn't answer. From now on, she will never be able to answer again. At this time, the doorbell rang again. "Martin is back?" Ruby was startled. She rushed over and opened the door. She blurted out a bunch of words and raised her hand as if to slap. "Martin, you still know to come home. I will expose you. I will divorce you. Where have you been fooling around these days?" But she was facing a group of people in uniforms. She was stunned. The raised hand slowly lowered. She finally realized something. Her face turned pale. The police officer in the lead nodded slightly and saluted. His expression was solemn. "Ruby, this morning we found your husband's body in the valley of his Han scenic area. Please come and claim it." At turn, Ruby was taken to claim my body. She happened to see Sean in handcuffs being escorted by a group of people. When he saw Ruby, he looked back in astonishment but was severely warned by the people beside him not to think about playing any tricks. Ruby said in a daze, "Sean, why are you?" It seemed as if she had thought of something. Suddenly, she trembled all over. "No. Impossible." The police officer beside her said seriously, "Madam, that is the suspect suspected of killing your husband. We extracted his palm prints and fingerprints from your husband's clothes. And I actually felt a sense of revenge. Sean, It's still too early for you to cover up the truth. Paper can't wrap fire. When she was taken into the inner room, she finally saw my body lying on the platform. I floated to her side. Looking at that body covered by a white cloth, I finally had a real sense of being truly and completely dead. Pale-faced, eyes closed tightly. The whole person was so miserable. Ruby covered her mouth in disbelief. Tears gushed out uncontrollably, flowed over the back of her hand and dripped on the ground. "Wake up!" She shouted my name frantically. "Martin! How can you leave me like this? I don't believe it. You must be pretending. You are deceiving me." Right. But the me lying on the platform would never give her any response again. Cold and silent. Never open the eyes again, and look at her with a smile. She cried and laughed. Looking crazy. You are all deceiving me. You even booked a wedding? All deceiving me. I knew it. You don't want me anymore. You are going to abandon me. Ruby was incoherent. She was about to rush up and shake my body, but was dissuaded by the police officer behind her. "Madam, please accept this with resignation. But once a person is dead, they can't come back to life." As if finally being sentenced, she slumped to the ground powerlessly and buried her face deeply in her hands, emitting a desperate sob. "Martin, I was wrong. I shouldn't have asked you to save Sean that day." Mentioning Sean's name, she suddenly became more energetic. She stood up. Anger welled up in her eyes. She clenched her fists and said hoarsely, "It's all him. It's all him who killed you. I want him to pay with his life for you. I will avenge you." She was about to rush out to find Sean but was stopped by the people beside her. "Are you a family member? We have sorted out the deceased's personal belongings. Please receive them." On the tray was my phone and a broken piece of jade. The other party added, "This was found in the deceased's upper pocket." Seeing that broken piece of jade, Ruby, who had been yelling about avenging Sean, finally couldn't bear it. Her body went limp and she heavily knelt on the ground. The shattered and blood-stained broken jade with the word peace on it. It was the token of love that Ruby gave me for the first time. And on the night when she forced me to go out, it was broken by her own hands. 9 That night, our argument was far more than that. "Martin, aren't you just afraid of death?" Ruby was aggressive. "Don't make so many excuses. As a rescue team member, your duty should be to save people. Moreover, I was saved by him. We should repay his kindness. How can we watch him die? Do you have a heart?" I suddenly felt very tired. And I felt that she was very strange. "You owe him a favor. Then you go and repay it. Why drag me into it? Moreover, it was clearly me who saved the person back then. On the day we were trapped, not only was there a heavy rain, but there were also falling rocks from time to time hitting our faces and bodies. Ruby was even hit on the head. Blood was gushing out, and she was almost unconscious. Sean couldn't help at all. He could only shout crazily. Instead, he exhausted his own strength. I was the only one among us who had rescue knowledge. But it was difficult to hold on alone. I really had no choice but to tie several knots to tightly bind them to prevent them from slipping. I tightly grasped the slippery climbing rope with my left hand and bore most of the tension. I maintained that posture all the time, no matter whether rocks were falling or rain was washing over, until my left hand was worn through and the wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. I didn't let go. And finally, my teammates arrived. When I was put on the stretcher, I was still tightly holding Ruby and almost couldn't be separated. But on the first day she woke up, the person she strongly requested to see was Sean. In order not to stimulate her, we kept it a secret all along. But she became even more excessive. She thought that I was the coward without responsibility and Sean was the heroic man with masculinity. I was really tired. That's it. If you really want to divorce me for him, I have no complaints. I smiled wryly. Anyway, if she really wants to divorce me, it proves that she doesn't love me anymore. What can I do to win her back? Ruby was so angry that she couldn't say a word for a moment. She suddenly reached out and tore off the amulet that I had always been wearing. The jade was warm and still carried my body temperature. When I realized what she wanted to do, I widened my eyes. No, the sound of jade breaking rang in my ears. The word peace fell apart. Just like our relationship over the years. I looked at her angry eyes in disbelief. Hearing her words, they struck my heart one by one. Martin, I really regret wasting all these years on you. You are a useless coward and don't deserve to be called a hero by them. 10. I don't know when she became like this. When there was no Sean between us. We were very happy. I still remember the first Valentine's Day after we were together. She took me to the Yulao Temple to pray for marriage. Ruby wanted to buy marriage amulets. One for each of us. And wear them on us. The stall owner looked apologetic and scratched his head. Sorry. Today's sales are so good that only amulets for safety are left. Ruby picked up the amulet for safety. It's okay. This one will do. She turned around and put it on me herself. Smiling sweetly, Martin, your profession has a high risk coefficient. I hope it can protect you to be safe and live a long life. What about you? I also started to take out my wallet. I'll buy one for you too. No need. Ruby held my hand and said softly. Behind us. Thousands of red silk ribbons on the marriage tree fluttered in the wind. Her hair also rose in the spring breeze. Her eyes were as bright as stars. I believe that with you by my side, you can definitely protect me and keep me safe all my life. That day, I thought I was the happiest person in the world, but it turned out to be a prophecy. From beginning to end, we never got married. And the safety she promised was broken by her own hands on that rainy night. 11. After taking away the relics, Ruby went home alone. She unlocked the lock screen of my phone with her fingerprint. She clicked on the call records and saw the missed calls I made to her at that time. She didn't answer the first two out of anger. The later ones couldn't be dialed out because the signal was too poor. In this way, we passed by each other forever. She clicked on the text messages with trembling hands. But she found that my last message was actually sent to Sean. Please, don't tell her. She will blame herself. Judging by the time, it was sent by me when I was dying after falling off the cliff and my consciousness was unclear. I didn't even remember sending this message. But what did she send me? What she sent me was, Martin, die outside and never come home again. I had approached her countless times, but she pushed me away again and again. She had many chances to save me, and there were also many chances to know about my death. But she refused all of them. She personally became the last straw that crushed me. Even after I died, she still posted such remarks online to smear my innocence. Martin, I'm sorry. Ruby pressed my phone to her heart and couldn't stop crying. Her pain made her breathing tremble. But suddenly she raised her hand and stared fiercely at the ring on her ring finger. It was the ring that Sean put on her himself. She suddenly took off the ring and threw it into the trash can. Looking at it like an enemy. Sean, I hate you. Even if you saved me, I want you to pay for Martin's blood debt. But it was also the ring I bought for her. But she would never have a chance to know. Ruby stood there for a while. Suddenly, as if she remembered something, she stood up and walked towards the locked room. My pupils shrank. In that room were the portraits I drew for her when I was chasing her back then, after she was injured. Seeing these would remind her of bad memories. So I locked the room. Ruby opened the door and walked straight to the largest painting, and looked at it carefully. Looking at it, she suddenly covered her head. Obviously, the trauma had occurred. But she endured the pain and reached out to touch it. No. No. Tears gradually welled up in Ruby's eyes. She suddenly sat on the ground and hugged her head and screamed. What's wrong? My soul couldn't help but squat in front of her and look at her sad and painful face. After we got married, her post-traumatic stress would often occur. Every time it was me who accompanied her through it. She would gradually calm down in my arms. But now she was alone. Ruby gasped for breath and forced herself to stand up. Her eyes gradually became firm. No. The person who saved me was injured on the left hand. 12. Did she remember? I was suddenly shocked. Back then, when the three of us, me, her and Sean, were in danger while climbing to save them, my left hand was seriously injured and left sequelae. After waking up, Ruby mistakenly thought that Sean was her benefactor. Sean's right hand was injured. Ruby was extremely distressed and turned to blame me. You made it impossible for him to paint anymore. How can you compensate? No. Those were painted by me. Sean has never been able to paint. But I can't prove it anymore. Whenever I tried to tell Ruby the truth, she would have post-traumatic stress, scream and go crazy. Later, I gradually gave up clarifying. As long as she was still willing to be by my side, I could endure it. But seeing her take the initiative to approach the truth, my long unbeating heart still became excited. Ruby's voice was as soft as a whisper. This painting was also done by a left-handed person. She felt the brushstrokes upon the painting. The left side was heavy and the right side was light. It was clearly the brushstroke above a left-handed person. She suddenly sobbed, but Sean always said that he was injured on the right hand, so he couldn't paint for me anymore. She suddenly peeled off the painting paper and saw the signature on the back. Martin. Ruby couldn't hold on anymore and burst into tears. The tears with the painting paper in her hand. It's always been you, Martin. The person who saved me is you. The person who loves me is also you. Why didn't you tell me? What have I done to you? She completely broke down emotionally. 13. I used to love her very much. I was an orphan with no parents and suffered cold stares. I went to school through my own efforts but was often laughed at by everyone because of poverty. Ruby protected me and said that she wanted to be my big sister and let me be her bag-carrying little brother. Anyway, those people finally didn't dare to laugh at me anymore. At that time, I had no money to buy breakfast and always went to class on an empty stomach. But every morning she would throw a breakfast to me and said arrogantly, "Eat it. How can you help me carry my bag if you don't have enough to eat?" Thanks to her, I no longer had to endure hunger. Later, because of my excellent physical fitness, I was accidentally noticed by the rescue team. The captain offered to take me to training for free and also provide me with a job. I was delighted that I finally had a way out and happily went to tell her this news. But she looked at me blankly and tears fell down. Martin, are you leaving? Don't leave, okay? I want you by my side. I hesitated for 2 days and 2 nights. Finally, I made up my mind and thought about rejecting that offer. There were still many ways to move forward. But there was only one Ruby. If I missed it, I would never meet her again. But before I could tell her what I was thinking, she came to my house to look for me. It was a cold winter. Ruby ran so hard that she was out of breath and her cheeks were flushed. She put her hands behind her back and said mysteriously, "Lower your head." So I lowered my head and felt warmth around my neck. It was a scarf. The stitches were a bit rough, but it could be seen that it was hand-knitted. She looked at me and clapped her hands. "Okay. You can go. Wear my scarf and it's like I'm always by your side." I saw the band-aid wrapped around her fingertip. It was the injury from knitting the scarf. Would a young lady like her also give her heart to someone? Or to a loser like me? I couldn't help but say, "But didn't you say before, Martin, you are going to join the rescue team and become a hero? I can't trap you forever." Ruby turned around but then looked at me sideways. There was a sparkle in her eyes. "If you still want to see me, then work harder. Come back early, and be my hero." For this sentence of hers, no matter how hard or tiring it was, I endured it. I became the hardest working one in the team. They were all curious about my perseverance. Only I knew that I worked so hard because I didn't want to disappoint her. Later, I returned after learning, and became a glorious rescue team member. I successfully completed countless rescue missions, and also got married to her. She never disliked the wounds on my body and said that those were my medals. At that time, I was surrounded by flowers and applause and had my lover by my side. At that time, I thought that life had finally turned for the better after suffering. I had endured the hardships and finally was about to taste the sweetness. Unexpectedly, my life was like endless mountains. One mountain after another blocked the way. 14 through a glass. Ruby saw Sean again, who was haggard. He was restrained and looked in a mess. Sean pleaded, "Ruby, I really didn't mean it. It was Martin who deliberately angered me. That's why I was possessed for a moment. We are good brothers. I didn't mean to kill him. Ruby, you are the family member of the victim. Please issue a letter of understanding. Martin has already passed away. It's useless to pursue my responsibility anymore. He can't come back. After I get out, I will make up for my sins to him." "Sean, you are so ridiculous." Ruby glared at him suddenly and was extremely angry. "Back then when we were trapped, weren't you also the one who was saved by Martin? How can you have the nerve to take his place in everything and enjoy what should have belonged to him with peace of mind? How dare you? You still want to make up for it? Then go to hell quickly and see him face to face and apologize to him." She threw down a harsh sentence. "Take care of yourself. You actually dared to fabricate lies and harm a hero. You deserve to pay with blood. This is what you deserve." Then she turned around and was about to walk out. But Sean saw her empty ring finger keenly and suddenly burst into wild laughter. "Ruby, did you throw away the ring?" Ruby's footsteps stopped. "You don't know, right? That ring wasn't bought by me. It was bought by Martin for you. He put the ring with me because he was afraid that you would find out and wanted to give you a surprise." Sean laughed until tears came out. Laughing like a madman, he is really a true lover. It's a pity that he met to scumbags like us. His true feelings were all fed to the dogs. "No." Ruby hugged her head, unable to believe it. "That was clearly given to me by you. How could it be his?" Sean gave up completely and shouted, "Wasn't that wedding team enough to make you see the reality? Ruby, stop pretending to be affectionate. How are you any better than me? His death is because of you. It was you who mistook the person. It was you who personally pushed him out of the house. If we are going to hell, we should go together. Don't think you can be clean. You don't deserve it." 15 back home. Ruby wanted to find anything related to me, but found that there was nothing left. Whether it was our marriage certificate, wedding photo, or my medals, certificates, and pennants, they were all destroyed completely by her in a fit of anger. Now, they have been compressed into a pile of waste in the garbage disposal station. Just like I have become a handful of ashes, lying quietly in an urn. She no longer has a chance to miss me. In the heavy rain, Ruby rushed out of the door, fell several times, and rushed into the garbage disposal station near her home in a mess, covered in mud and water. She tried hard to search, but it was in vain. She knelt on the ground and cried out my name, but no one would answer her anymore. Some people nearby were talking, "Is that a lunatic? She seems mentally abnormal." Someone recognized her and opened a live broadcast on the spot. "Everyone come and see. Isn't this the venomous woman who slandered Martin online a few days ago? She really seems crazy. Otherwise, she couldn't say such poisonous words." There was also a child who rushed over and spat, putting his hands on his hips and saying, "Bad aunt. Don't you dare scold Uncle Martin. He is a hero." Soon, the child was pulled away by his mother. "Baby, don't get close to the lunatic. It's contagious." Ruby, who used to be extremely proud, didn't refute them and didn't make any response. She just stood up in a daze and walked back home. She wanted to find even one thing related to me. But she found that a few days ago, in a fit of anger, she had thrown out almost everything related to me. At that time, Sean looked at the things I left behind and teased, "Ruby, he has left you and run away. Don't you want these anymore?" Ruby waved her hand and didn't care at all. "Throw them away." So, all my daily necessities were thrown out by them. The house was empty and there was no trace of me. It was as if I had never lived here. As if we had never been in love for so many years. She opened her phone and saw someone post. Martin is not Ruby's husband. Ruby doesn't deserve him. Martin is our hero. We will always miss him. Ruby stood there blankly for a while before finally smiling bitterly. Yes. I don't deserve it. After saying this sentence, she seemed to be drained of all her strength and became haggard and withered. She walked into the room that was no longer locked and knelt in front of her portrait. That was Ruby painted by me. Ruby who loved me the most that year. Ruby who promised to love me forever. In my eyes, her smile was clean. So pure and beautiful. Full of love. But now she was covered in mud and was no longer the same as before. Ruby knelt in front of her brilliant smile, like this, and couldn't stop crying. 16 On the day of Sean's execution, Ruby came to my grave with a bouquet of white flowers. Martin, I specially came to tell you that Sean has received his due punishment. She bowed deeply to my tombstone. Next. It's my turn. I watched her silently. In fact, my soul should have dissipated and entered reincarnation long ago. But maybe it was her obsession that pulled me and made me stay here. During this period. Because of what she did before. The stock price of her company also dropped crazily. 2 cut losses in time. She transferred the company to her subordinates and withdrew from the business world herself. She also canceled all her social media accounts and isolated herself from the world. She began to be addicted to extreme sports. Rock climbing. Skydiving. Deep diving. Ruby tried them one by one. People often recognized her and pointed, "What a heartless person." After doing such a thing, she still has the face to travel and enjoy herself everywhere. She didn't respond and silently prepared for the next challenge. Finally, in the middle of the night, she murmured to my portrait, "Martin, I thought I could still live for you. But in every extreme sport, when I experience the feeling of approaching death, I am filled with joy in my heart. You are my hero. I'm sorry for you. Can you give me a chance to atone for my sins? I really want to see you. Martin, after I see Sean's execution, shall I come to see you?" No one answered. But she smiled foolishly. "Then we have a deal." So, I watched her ride to the mountain where I had the accident and climb step to the deserted mountaintop. The weather was very good. The sky was clear. The sun shone on her. Ruby stepped over the railing and jumped into the clouds. "Martin, I'm coming to find you."